In the hours following President Trump's announcement of a ceasefire between Israel and Iran, one question that comes and still remains tonight after the U.S. attacks in Iran is just how much of Iran's nuclear program is left intact and also the levels of its enriched uranium. Vice President J.D. Vance was asked about that very matter just a few hours ago.
Do you know for sure where all the highly enriched uranium is?
Well, Brett, I think that's actually not the question before us. The question before us is, can Iran enrich the uranium to a weapons-grade level, and can they convert that fuel to a nuclear weapon? And we know, based on the success of our mission, of course, the leadership of the president, but the incredible skill of our military, that the two mission objectives are completely successful. We know that they cannot build a nuclear weapon. Now, you asked about the highly enriched uranium.
Yeah, like 900 pounds of it.
But what we know, Brett, is that uranium is something that exists in very large supply. Our goal was to bury the uranium, and I do think the uranium is buried, but our goal was to eliminate the enrichment and eliminate their ability to convert that enriched fuel into a nuclear weapon.
Joining me tonight, Jim Sciutto, CNN's chief national security analyst, and Jeff Zeleny, CNN's chief national affairs correspondent. And Jim Sciutto, on that answer there from Vice President Vance, obviously this was a key question coming out of Saturday night's attack, as the Pentagon said they were still assessing the full extent of the damage. We've certainly heard the president's assessments, including today. I wonder what you made of that answer, though.
Well, listen, I was going to say it's a non-answer. Actually, it was an answer in that he at least did not express confidence that they know where it is, right? He says they believe it to be buried underground, but I know for a fact that the Israelis don't know for sure where the bulk of it is, right? And that is part of their own battle damage assessment, which is still ongoing. The senior Israeli intelligence source told me, and he described it this way. He said, BDA, battle damage assessment, is an art more than a science, and it requires more than satellite photos. It requires human intelligence on the ground, signals intelligence, intercepted communications of Iranian officials talking about what damage took place, etc. And from the Israeli perspective, that's still taking place. They don't have an answer to two questions, really: the extent of damage to the facilities, but also the whereabouts of all of that enriched uranium. And we heard from the podium of the Pentagon just in the last 24 hours that, at least from the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, that they have not completed their own BDA either. So the fact is, it doesn't appear that they know yet, right, despite the confidence you hear expressed from the president and the vice president. And that will be important in knowing exactly how much damage you've done to the program for the long term.
And Jeff, as far as this ceasefire playing out and what we are watching for so closely over the next few hours, can you just walk us through behind the scenes at the White House, what's been happening there as all of this has been playing out in terms of phone calls and conversations that led up to the president's post tonight?
I mean, Caitlin, an extraordinary day here, but if you think back, really an extraordinary 48 hours or so. It was just 48 hours when the president was announcing to the nation that the strike had been carried out. A day later, he was calling for regime change. And tonight, we're talking about a ceasefire seems within reach. Now, there's no doubt the White House is keeping a very careful eye on the region tonight. There is a time frame in this agreement that has been worked on throughout the day, really in a series of phone calls, we are told. It was a rare day. We did not see the president in public view at all, but he was in the Oval Office earlier in the day, throughout the day, all day long, making these phone calls, working with the vice president, working with the Secretary of State. The president, we are told, got the agreement, of course, from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, but of course it was the Iranian side that was the more difficult agreement to broker. And in the middle of all of this, of course, which is somewhat related, missiles were fired onto the El Udeid air base outside of Doha, of course, the largest U.S. military installation in the Middle East, where the president just visited last month. But that was largely seen as something of an act, if you will, an act of aggression. It was clear that the White House administration, the U.S. government, was waiting for some type of a retaliation. So throughout the day, Caitlin, as you know, you were here with me, many officials were going back and forth all day long, the Situation Room, other places, but most did not know what was going on. It wasn't until 6 p.m. that the president once again announcing this on Truth Social. So we've had a military strike on Iran announced on Truth Social, and now a potential ceasefire. But the coming hours are very, very important. There's no recognition that this is definitively done until the sun comes up and until things actually begin to be formalized. But the president, we are told, is still heading out, leaving very early tomorrow morning for the NATO summit in the Netherlands, and he's carrying with him a freshly brokered peace deal that few thought was possible only a few hours ago.
Anderson, I just want to read to you, as we've been watching to see and wait for formal responses from the Israelis and from the Iranians. The foreign minister of Iran is now weighing in on the president's announcement tonight. They're denying that there is a formal ceasefire agreement, as he says that as of now, there is no agreement on any ceasefire or cessation of military operations. He says, quote, however, provided that the Israeli regime stops its illegal aggression against the Iranian people no later than 4 a.m. Tehran time, we have no intention to continue our response afterwards.
Yeah, it's a little confusing given, whether the term agreement is for whatever reason they don't want to use. It does seem like they are going to be stopping along the same timeline that the president seemed to indicate. Remains to be seen if this happens. As you said, according to the president's timeline, these dominoes should begin to fall in about 3 hours from now. So we will obviously be watching very closely to see what happens as dawn really starts to break here in the region. But it's just been an extraordinary 24 hours here. Caitlin, as you know, as you were covering it, first of all, with the Iran response, the much awaited Iranian response to the massive strikes by the United States, by the Trump administration, a response they telegraphed, according to all the reporting, to Qatar before it occurred, and telegraphed to the world that this was going to be a limited, what they would view as proportional in the sense of the number, they highlighted the number of missiles fired by Iran toward Qatar, which they warned the Qataris about, and then obviously the U.S. was warned as well, is equal to the number of actual bombs, the bunker buster bombs that were dropped by the United States. Obviously the U.S. also fired Tomahawk missiles, but they didn't include that in their calculus of missiles fired. It's clearly this kind of pre-negotiated, pre-discussed response. They felt they had to respond in some way. They did, and they were telegraphing this is going to be it, essentially one and done, which is exactly what, the administration heard that, listened to, and then was able to, according to the president, get this agreement, though the Iranian foreign minister is not calling it an agreement.
Well, and it's notable, obviously, that the president was on the phone today with the prime minister of Israel, obviously having conversations about this exact agreement that he was trying to get them to settle on. I do think it's notable that we have not heard anything officially from the Israelis yet, a confirmation of this in the 3 hours since the president posted about it.
It is interesting, and I'm not sure why that would be. Obviously, according to this timeline, they are still able to have operations going on over Iran. We haven't been able to contact Fred Pleitgen into Tehran. I think earlier we talked to him. There was still military activity going on in the skies over Iran. Remains to be seen how long they continue those operations for. That's obviously something that's going to be crucial if the president's stated timeline is to be stuck to.
Yeah, Anderson, on the ground in Tel Aviv. We'll check back in with you throughout the hour. And also now I want to go to Aaron Burnett. And Aaron, the questions, in this region of what this ceasefire means. I mean, today alone, we saw the implications that this goes far beyond just Israel and Iran, given Iran was firing on that U.S. base in Qatar, one of the biggest, if the biggest military installation that the U.S. has in the Middle East. Mm-hmm. What's the latest on the ground there tonight?
Well, so, obviously it's dawn here, as Anderson's talking a little bit later in the morning here, already just after 5 o'clock in the morning, Caitlin. And, the big question is whether this will hold. Talking to sources, as we were here in the region today, you had airspace closed, you had flights not coming in, you have flights being canceled to Dubai from multiple airlines, to Riyadh. Really important and significant steps being taken as all of this was being negotiated. And on that, really fragile and concern. Some sources in the region, though, one very senior diplomatic source telling me of this ceasefire, Caitlin, and his words, quote, "I think it actually might hold." So there is a hope for that. These are very senior officials who are saying that. But on the Iranian side, I think, as you point out, the timeline here is so crucial. Sources there are telling me that, as Qatar started talking to Iran, those conversations were happening, but hours after those conversations started, that was when Trump posted on Truth Social that there was a ceasefire, and he did that before having any response, they say, from Iran. So the question is, Iran now saying, at least sources there are telling me, well, okay, we'll go with this depending what Israel does, just what you saw the foreign minister post. Important, though, to note, as we hear from the foreign minister, we have not yet heard from the supreme leader, and our reporting is that he has been in hiding in a bunker. And there's a real question as to what he knows, what he's communicated, what's been communicated to him. And a lot is resting on the answer to that question, which, of course, we don't know the answer to that at this moment here as dawn is hitting here on the Straits of Hormuz, Caitlin.
Yeah, and of course we get a lot of bombastic statements from the Iranians. The question is, what do they actually do here? And if they stop firing,